Have you ever stayed in a highly toxic environment just to avoid being completely alone? Do you constantly surround yourself with people who secretly drain your premium energy? We are heavily conditioned to believe that deep isolation is a terrifying punishment. We frantically cling to deeply broken relationships just to feel a false sense of security. But the dark, psychological reality is that your fear of solitude is a massive weakness. Manipulators actively use your deep terror of loneliness to keep you entirely trapped. Until you learn to fiercely weaponize your own isolation, you will always be a slave to the crowd. Before we uncover the incredibly dangerous, terrifying power of absolute solitude, please take a quick moment to hit the like button right now. Subscribe to our channel for more deeply powerful life lessons. In the chaotic, heavily overcrowded slums of a massive ancient metropolis, there lived a highly gifted, deeply anxious young artisan named Elian. Elian possessed an undeniable, breathtaking talent for carving incredibly rare gemstones, but he suffered from a massive, completely paralyzing fear of total isolation. To completely avoid the terrifying silence of his own mind, he joined a local guild. This guild was filled with deeply arrogant, highly manipulative, lazy craftsmen. They spent their days aggressively gossiping, heavy drinking, and barely working. Elian hated the constant, deafening noise and the highly toxic, bitter drama, but he desperately stayed because he falsely believed that any company was better than none. Because of his massive, undeniable talent, the lazy guild members actively used him. They constantly forced Elian to do their heavy, complicated carving work for completely free. They aggressively took massive credit for his beautiful, highly intricate gemstone designs. If Elian ever softly complained, they would violently threaten to completely banish him. The mere thought of eating completely alone in the dark violently terrified his fragile soul. So he submissively kept his mouth completely shut and aggressively worked himself to the bone. One freezing winter evening, Elian collapsed in the muddy, freezing street from pure exhaustion. His highly toxic friends completely ignored his deeply painful, agonizing coughing fits. They aggressively stepped directly over his shivering body to reach the warm tavern doors. Completely shattered, Elian realized his desperate loyalty had bought him absolutely nothing. He dragged his heavily bruised body away from the noisy, highly toxic city limits. He wandered deep into the silent, incredibly dangerous, freezing mountain range. He stumbled upon a massive, beautiful stone temple completely carved into the icy cliffs. Inside sat an ancient, deeply feared stoic monk who had not spoken to another human in decades. The old monk silently handed the freezing, completely broken boy a warm cup of herbal tea. Elian desperately cried, wildly confessing his massive, pathetic fear of being totally abandoned. The ancient monk looked deeply into the roaring fire with an incredibly piercing, calm stare. If you violently throw a handful of cheap breadcrumbs into a dirty city square, the monk growled, a massive, chaotic flock of pathetic pigeons will aggressively fight each other for the dirty scraps. Pigeons constantly, desperately flock together because they are incredibly weak, vulnerable prey. But if you look up at the massive, terrifyingly high, freezing mountain peaks, you will absolutely never ever see a massive flock of chaotic eagles violently flying together. The eagle aggressively flies completely alone in the silent, terrifying, deeply freezing dark. Because the eagle is an absolute, undeniable apex predator who completely owns the entire sky. The monk brutally explained that solitude is not a deeply agonizing, pathetic punishment. Absolute solitude is the highly exclusive, incredibly expensive price you must pay for true greatness. When you frantically surround yourself with a noisy, deeply toxic flock of pathetic pigeons, you are actively, violently sacrificing your own massive wingspan just to perfectly fit into the dirty square. Elian felt a massive psychological shockwave completely shatter his pathetic, desperate codependency. He instantly realized that his massive fear of isolation was the exact chain holding him hostage. The very next morning, Elian completely refused to ever return to the highly toxic, noisy city. He aggressively built his own small, highly isolated carving studio high in the freezing mountains. The first few weeks of absolute, total silence were deeply terrifying and incredibly painful. His brain frantically craved the cheap, highly toxic distraction of the manipulative guild. But as he aggressively pushed through the agonizing, deeply uncomfortable mental withdrawal, a massive, terrifyingly beautiful psychological transformation began to actively take place. Because he was completely free from the aggressive, highly toxic demands of the lazy crowd, Elian's raw, undeniable genius violently exploded into massive, breathtaking new heights. He carved magnificent, highly intricate masterpieces that the ancient world had never actually seen. Soon, incredibly wealthy kings and massively powerful emperors traveled directly to his isolated mountain. They aggressively offered him towering chests of pure gold for his highly exclusive, undeniable work. Meanwhile, the highly toxic, deeply lazy guild completely violently collapsed without his massive talent. They desperately begged Elian to return, aggressively offering him the absolute highest leadership position. But Elian simply looked down at them with an entirely blank, completely cold, absolutely terrifying silence. He calmly closed his heavy wooden door, entirely choosing his beautiful peace over their pathetic drama. This is a highly aggressive journey into the dark psychology of total, absolute emotional independence. It is defined by the absolute human need to fiercely protect your own premium, highly expensive energy. You must fundamentally understand that highly toxic, manipulative people absolutely despise your solitude. A narcissist completely loses their entire dark power the exact moment you realize you do not need them. When you are completely terrified of being alone, you will tolerate massive amounts of violent disrespect. But the exact moment you deeply fall in love with your own incredibly peaceful, quiet company, you become a highly dangerous, completely unmanipulatable, entirely unstoppable psychological force. Stop aggressively lowering your massive, beautiful standards just to avoid eating completely alone. Eating entirely alone is infinitely better than aggressively swallowing highly toxic, deeply poisonous food. The absolute highest form of psychological self-respect is the ability to walk away into the dark. Let them violently complain that you are suddenly incredibly distant, highly arrogant, and completely unreachable. Let them desperately drown in the massive, chaotic noise of their own deeply miserable, toxic lives. Solitude is the ultimate, highly exclusive forge where absolute, terrifying masters are actively created. Actively embrace the silent, deeply freezing dark and completely detach from the cheap applause of the crowd. When you finally completely stop caring if the deeply toxic flock accepts you, you violently open the heavy doors to a massive, beautifully bright, highly elevated future. Reclaim your absolute power today by completely embracing the terrifying beauty of being entirely alone. If you found true value in this dark, psychological lesson today, please hit that like button right now to actively support the channel. Leave a comment below about your own journey with embracing isolation. Subscribe to the channel for more deeply powerful life lessons.